So here we've got a data flow question. It's about the named storms that we've been seeing in the last few years. So storms that affect Scotland are named, the name, the region affected, the month and the year, and they're all stored in a CSV file. Then there's some sample data, and that's probably what's important to us rather than the CSV file. Now it says it's going to read it into parallel arrays. If I was using an array of records, then it would be a kind of different syntax or a different layout. So it's really important here that it's parallel arrays, and indeed in the first step it's given us the 4 arrays. So there's nothing going in the first step, but we've got these 4 arrays coming out after it's read them. Step 2 is that it's going to ask for a year and then count and display the number of storms in that year. Step 3 is going to count the number of storms for each year. And step 4, it's going to display the year with the most storms. Autumn months are September, October and November. Now really interestingly, later on in the question, I've certainly seen examples where people try this question and they say things like where month equals autumn. Of course autumn is not a month, so it's really important that it's where the month is September or October or November. So we have to complete this for step 2, 3 and 4. So step 2 is the one that is going to ask the user for a year and then count and display the number of storms, the number of autumn storms in that year. So therefore it's going to need the year, but it's also going to need the month. So year, and that's an array, so it gets pair of brackets, and the month, and that gets pair of brackets. Now it says count and display, so it's a procedure. So it's not going to be a function, it's not passing a value out, so therefore there is nothing coming out of that. You don't need to score that out in the exam, I'm just showing that I haven't left it incomplete. Step 3, count the number of storms for each year. So we don't need to know the name or the month or the region, but we do need the year for that. So only thing going in there is year, and it already tells us that what's coming out is an array. I know it's an array because of the bracket. So there's an array of the number of storms in that year. So that will be essentially for each year. We'll have a value there that will say how many storms there were that year. And then display the year with the most storms. So we're going to need num storms year, that array. And there's nothing really that we need from that. We don't need the name, it's just displaying the year with the most storms, so we just need to go through this and do a find max. We don't need the name or the month, the region, we don't even need the year. And that's an array, and again it says it's displaying it. It's not a function, it's not returning a value to anything, it's just a procedure that's printing it, so there's nothing coming out there. And that'd be my 3 marks. The second part of the question, so this is a design technique. Now realistically, almost everyone's going to do this in pseudocode. So we're going to ask the user for a year, we're going to count and display, so we're going to do a count occurrence if it's telling us to count something. Count and display autumn storms. So remember what I said, it's not going to be month equals autumn, it's going to be where it's one of the 3 months that it gives us, September, October and November. So September, October and November. So first of all, I'm going to want to initialize my counter, so I could just call it count. You might have called it count storms or storms, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to set a counter to 0. And then I also want to get input from the user. Doesn't really matter what order these first 2 steps are in, because neither of them depends on the other. So ask user for a year, and then after that we want to loop through all of them and then check does the year match. So loop for each storm if, now I could say something like each year or year I, it doesn't really matter, but so long as I indicate that I'm getting one at a time. So if I say each year or this year equals user year, So I'm comparing what's in the array to what the user had. Then if the month, and I could have just had an and here and had a really big long condition, that would be fine as well. If the month, or let's say each month, or this month, is September or October or November. Because I'm doing a design technique, I'm going to get away with it. If I was doing this in code, I would have to say the month is September, or the month is October, or the month is November. But I'll get away with it in this case because it's a design technique. And if it is, then I'm going to have my counter incremented. So add 1 to the count. So now my counter starts off as 0. I'm asking the user for a year. I loop through each storm. If the year is the user's year and the month is September or October or November, we add 1 to the count. By the end of this design running, we'll have a counter that tells us how many there were. I guess the last thing we would want to include on it, just because it does say display as well, is that we would want to say something like display the count. And we would do that after the loop. You don't want to do it inside the loop because you would end up sort of spamming the user's screen with the count going up 1 at a time until it finally reaches its final value.